The sky was painted in deep hues of orange and pink, casting a warm, ethereal glow over the sprawling metropolis below. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, Amir Al-Farsi looked out over the city's skyline, his gaze drifting over the sea of lights and towering buildings that had once been the very symbol of his success. The breathtaking view was something Amir had grown accustomed to, but tonight, it felt strangely distant. There was a sense of emptiness that lingered around him, despite the luxury and power he wielded. Amir was a man of wealth, an Arab millionaire who had built his empire from the ground up. He was known for his sharp business acumen, his extravagant lifestyle, and his ability to get anything he wanted. Cars, mansions, yachts. These things had become so commonplace in his life that they no longer held the same thrill they once had. But there was one thing that had always eluded him: happiness. Despite the riches and the power, Amir had never been able to fill the hole left in his heart after his divorce from Noor, his ex-wife. The memories of their time together were bittersweet. There were moments of passion and love, but they were always overshadowed by the bitterness that came with their separation. Noor had been his world once, but as time passed, their differences had torn them apart, and in the end, it wasn't just their marriage that had died. It was the connection they had once shared. Now, as Amir prepared for dinner with his girlfriend, Layla, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Layla was everything a man could ask for: beautiful, intelligent, and charming. They had been together for 6 months, and while their connection was undeniable, Amir couldn't help but wonder if she was just a placeholder in his life, a distraction. She didn't know the full extent of his past, his relationship with Noor, the pain, the regret. Layla was his present, but she didn't have a place in his past. As Amir absent-mindedly straightened his tie in front of the mirror, he caught his reflection. Handsome, polished, a man who had everything. Yet the thought of Noor lingered in his mind, haunting him like a ghost he couldn't escape. The night they had parted ways had been a quiet one. No dramatic shouting, no heated arguments, just an overwhelming silence that spoke volumes. Noor had left, taking with her not just the memories of their marriage, but also a piece of Amir's heart. That piece had never quite healed, no matter how many years had passed. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Layla, looking stunning in a deep red dress that hugged her curves perfectly, entered the room. The sight of her brought Amir back to the present, and for a moment, he tried to shake off the melancholy thoughts that had clouded his mind. "Amir, are you ready?" Layla asked, her voice calm but filled with a note of concern. She had noticed the distant look in his eyes, the way he seemed lost in thought. It was a pattern she had seen before, and it made her uneasy. Amir turned to her with a smile, trying to mask the storm brewing inside. "Yes, of course," he replied, though the words felt hollow. "Just thinking about work." Layla raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "It's not work, is it?" she asked, her gaze softening. "I know when something's bothering you." Amir sighed, running a hand through his hair. He knew Layla cared for him, but there were parts of his life he couldn't share with her, parts of his heart that still belonged to someone else, someone he had tried to forget, but never could. "I'm fine," he assured her, though it didn't sound convincing even to his own ears. "It's nothing to worry about." Layla didn't press the issue, but she wasn't fooled. "All right," she said with a smile. "But tonight, let's just focus on us. We've been working hard, and you deserve to relax." Amir nodded, though his mind was already elsewhere. The thought of Noor still weighed heavily on him. He had seen her a few times after their divorce. Brief encounters in the city, awkward greetings, but nothing that had reopened old wounds. At least, that was what he had convinced himself. But tonight, something felt different. The pain of their lost love seemed to rise to the surface once again, and he couldn't escape it. With a final glance at his reflection in the mirror, Amir stepped forward, offering Layla his arm. They left the penthouse together, making their way to one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. The drive was smooth, the city lights passing by in a blur, but Amir couldn't shake the nagging feeling in his chest. He had everything he could ever want, except closure. As they arrived at the restaurant, the elegant ambiance immediately surrounded them. Soft jazz music played in the background, and waiters in crisp uniforms greeted them with polite smiles. The restaurant was filled with the kind of people Amir was used to: business tycoons, celebrities, and influencers. He was a regular here, and yet, tonight, nothing seemed to excite him. The moment they were seated at a private table with a stunning view of the city, Amir's thoughts wandered once again to Noor. "Are you okay?" Layla asked, her voice bringing him back to the present. Amir forced a smile. "Of course. I'm just tired." Before Layla could respond, the hostess arrived to take their drink order, and Amir's attention shifted momentarily. As he looked around the room, his eyes suddenly froze. Across the restaurant, standing by the entrance, was Noor. But it wasn't just Noor. It was Noor, pregnant, and wearing a smart, professional outfit, ready to head to work. Amir's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced. What was she doing here? And why did it feel like a punch to his gut? It wasn't the sight of her. No, it was the realization that she was moving forward with her life, completely independent, while he remained stuck in the past. Layla noticed the sudden change in Amir's demeanor. "What is it?" she asked, following his gaze. Her voice trembled slightly, sensing the tension in the air. Amir was momentarily speechless. He tried to look away, but his eyes couldn't leave her. There was Noor, not just surviving, but thriving, carrying his child, stepping into her new life with strength and grace. And in that moment, Amir realized just how much he had taken her for granted. The years of marriage, the moments of love and passion, they were all gone, and he was left here, in this cold, detached reality with a woman who wasn't his anymore. As Noor turned and began to walk towards the door, Amir's heart clenched. The realization hit him hard. He had never truly let go of his ex-wife. The woman who had once meant everything to him was now living a life without him, and he was left here, grappling with emotions he had long buried. Layla's voice broke through his thoughts. "Amir, is everything all right?" He swallowed hard, trying to compose himself. "Yes, I'm fine," he whispered. But even as he said it, he knew that everything had just changed. The atmosphere in the restaurant was undeniably sophisticated, the soft hum of conversations around them blending with the clinking of fine china. But for Amir, everything felt distant, as if a glass wall separated him from the world around him. He sat across from Layla, trying to focus on the plate before him, but his mind kept drifting back to the moment he saw Noor across the room. The image of her, glowing and confident with a slight curve to her belly, carried with it a weight Amir could hardly bear. Pregnant, and not alone. Layla noticed the subtle shift in Amir's demeanor, the way his gaze had frozen in place. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the unease in the way his jaw tightened. She wasn't sure what had happened, but something was clearly wrong. "Amir?" Layla's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts. "Are you all right?" He snapped back to reality, offering a tight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, just thinking," he muttered, his mind still racing. His thoughts were conflicted, his emotions raw. Layla had become a comforting presence in his life, a beautiful distraction from the past. But the truth was, he had never truly moved on. He thought he had, but seeing Noor tonight, pregnant and confident, standing there as though she had everything Amir had once dreamed of, was a shock to his system. The weight of it all was too much to keep inside. Layla, sensing something deeper at play, tried to lighten the mood with a playful remark. Come on, if you keep staring at your food like that, it'll get cold. You don't want me eating both our dinners, do you? Amir blinked, trying to shake off the fog in his mind. He looked at Layla, offering a faint chuckle, but it was a fleeting moment. His thoughts were still clouded with memories of Noor, their time together, their failed marriage, the lingering questions of what went wrong. And then, just as he tried to refocus on the present, his eyes betrayed him. He looked up, only to see Noor standing across the room, laughing with a man. It wasn't just the sight of Noor that struck him. It was the realization that she had moved on, and in a way that seemed so effortless, so final. The man beside her was tall, confident, laughing at something she had just said. They seemed so natural together. Layla followed Amir's gaze and, sensing the shift in his attention, asked, "Is that Noor?" Amir's chest tightened as he watched Noor and her companion. There was no doubt about it. She was radiant, completely in control of her life. She had become someone else, someone who no longer needed him. It was like a punch to the gut, but one that wasn't so easily recovered from. His pulse quickened. He couldn't help it. The jealousy, the sadness, the regret. It all surged to the surface, a wave that threatened to drown him. In that moment, he realized that while he might have thought he had buried his feelings for Noor, the truth was he had never really let go. The image of her, pregnant and with someone else, sent his emotions into overdrive. It was as if the past had come crashing back, forcing him to confront everything he had lost. Layla noticed Amir's change in expression, the way his body stiffened, his eyes fixated on Noor. "Amir," she started, her voice filled with concern, but he could barely hear her. The world seemed to blur around him, and all he could focus on was Noor and the life she had built without him. Amir's mind raced with memories. He remembered when Noor had told him they were having a child. It had been a time of hope, of excitement, before everything had unraveled. And now, seeing her with someone else, pregnant, it was a stark reminder of everything that had slipped away from him. He had let her go. He had let them go. He could feel Layla's gaze on him, but it was like she was miles away. He wanted to explain, to share his pain with her, but the words stuck in his throat. How could he tell her that seeing Noor, happy, thriving, had opened a wound he wasn't sure he could heal? That this wasn't just about seeing his ex-wife again. It was about seeing the life they could have had, the future he thought he had lost forever. Finally, Layla reached for his hand, squeezing it gently in an attempt to bring him back to the present. "Amir," she said softly, her voice steady but full of emotion. "Talk to me. What's going on?" Her words pulled him back, but only slightly. Amir turned to her, his expression conflicted. He didn't want to hurt her, didn't want to drag her into the mess of his past. But how could he keep pretending everything was fine when his entire world was being rocked by a simple glance across a restaurant? "I didn't expect to see her like this," Amir said, his voice low, filled with a kind of rawness Layla hadn't heard before. His words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Layla's brow furrowed, her heart aching as she tried to make sense of what Amir was saying. She had always known there were ghosts in his past, but she had never seen them manifest so strongly. She glanced back at Noor, who was now chatting animatedly with her companion, oblivious to the turmoil she had just caused. Layla's mind raced. She could feel Amir slipping away from her, just like he had with Noor. She could see it in his eyes, the way he couldn't let go, the way the past still had him in its grip. The man she loved, the man she thought she knew, was still haunted by the woman who had once been everything to him. The air in the room had shifted, thick with unspoken words and emotions. Amir wasn't just looking at Noor anymore. He was looking at the life he had imagined with her, the family they could have had. But it was a life that was no longer his, and seeing it unfold before him with another man felt like a cruel twist of fate. Layla squeezed his hand again, her voice softer now. I know you're hurting, Amir, but I'm here. You don't have to face this alone. But Amir wasn't sure how to respond. How could he? He had spent so long trying to move on, to push the memories of Noor into the past. But seeing her tonight, pregnant and happy, had shattered that illusion. He couldn't pretend it didn't matter anymore. The truth was, it still mattered more than anything. Layla, sensing the depth of his pain, leaned in closer, her face softening with understanding. I don't know what you're going through, but I want to be here for you. You don't have to carry this weight alone. Amir's heart ached as he looked at Layla. She didn't deserve this, didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of his unresolved emotions. But how could he let her in when he didn't even understand what he was feeling himself? Amir's mind was in turmoil. Seeing Noor again had ripped open old wounds, and now he was left to confront them in a way he never expected. The life he had imagined was gone, and with it, a part of him felt lost. He wanted to run, to escape the pain, but he knew there was no escaping the truth. The past had a way of creeping back when he least expected it, and it wasn't done with him yet. As the night continued, Amir found himself caught between the woman who had been his past and the woman who was trying to be his future. And for the first time, he wasn't sure which one he was ready to choose. The only thing he knew for certain was that nothing would ever be the same again. The tension in the restaurant was palpable. The quiet murmur of conversations seemed like a distant echo compared to the storm brewing inside Amir. He could feel the cold sweat on his palms as he tried to focus on Layla, but all he could see was Noor, pregnant, radiant, and laughing with another man. The image haunted him, each glance at her adding weight to the burden on his chest. He felt trapped between the past and present, unable to reconcile the two. Layla, sensing the growing rift between them, grew more concerned. Amir, please, talk to me, she urged gently, her voice laced with worry. She had tried to understand the complexity of his emotions, but tonight, it was like Amir was a stranger, distant, unreachable. It wasn't just about Noor. It was something deeper, something that had been festering for far too long. Amir's gaze dropped to the table, his fingers tracing the rim of his wineglass absent-mindedly. He knew he couldn't keep hiding from the truth any longer. The image of Noor with someone else, the life she had built without him, was a mirror to the choices he had made. Choices that had led him here, sitting across from Layla, yet emotionally miles away. I don't know how to explain it, Amir muttered, the words slipping out before he could stop them. He turned to Layla, the weight of his silence finally cracking. Seeing her like this, with him, I feel like I've failed, not just as a husband, but as a man. I let go of everything we could have had. Layla's heart ached as she listened. She had known there were unresolved feelings, but hearing him say it out loud was like a punch to the gut. She wasn't sure how to respond. She had been so focused on their relationship, on building something new, that she had never fully grasped the depth of Amir's past with Noor. But now, as the truth came flooding out, she realized that no matter how much they tried to move forward, the shadow of Amir's former life would always be there. You didn't fail, Amir, Layla said softly, trying to reach him. Things don't always work out the way we expect them to, but that doesn't mean you failed. Amir's eyes filled with pain, the vulnerability that had always been hidden beneath his confident exterior now exposed. He wanted to believe Layla's words, wanted to believe that he hadn't failed in every way that mattered, but the truth was, he didn't feel like he had succeeded at anything. Not with Noor, not with Layla, and certainly not with himself. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had fought for us? Amir's voice was barely a whisper, the raw emotion hanging between them. His question wasn't directed at Layla specifically, but rather to the emptiness that had taken over his heart since he and Noor had parted ways. What if he hadn't been so quick to give up? What if they had tried harder? Could they have fixed what was broken? Layla's expression softened, her heart aching for him. She had been in his shoes before, wondering about the road not taken, the what-ifs that lingered in the corners of her mind. But she also knew that there was no going back. The past could never be undone. "I don't know, Amir," she said quietly, her voice steady but gentle. "But what I do know is that we can't keep living in the past. You have to let go of what didn't work and try to build something real here and now, with me. But you have to choose. You have to decide if you're ready to let go of her, of that life, and move forward." Her words cut through Amir like a blade. He knew she was right, but it didn't make the decision any easier. How could he let go of something that had been such a huge part of his life? How could he let go of the memories, the love, the dreams he once shared with Noor? How could he move forward with Layla when the shadow of his past loomed so large? But as Amir looked at Layla, he realized that she had a point. He couldn't keep carrying the weight of his past forever. He couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when inside, he was torn apart. It wasn't fair to her, and it certainly wasn't fair to himself. He needed to decide what kind of future he wanted. He needed to confront his feelings, no matter how difficult that might be. "I don't know if I'm ready," Amir admitted, the words feeling heavy on his tongue. "But I have to try. For us. For me." Layla nodded, her expression a mixture of relief and sorrow. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. She knew Amir had a long way to go before he could truly move on. But at least now, there was a chance. A chance for them to build something real, something free from the ghosts of the past. As Amir's gaze returned to Noor, he realized something. He could never go back. The life they had once shared was gone, and it was time to let it go. He had been holding on to it for far too long, and in doing so, he had neglected everything that was waiting for him in the present. He took a deep breath, his shoulders relaxing as he made the decision to let go of the past. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was the only way forward. And for the first time in a long time, Amir felt a sense of clarity. A sense that maybe, just maybe, he could start over. But that didn't mean it was the end of the struggle. It wasn't just about letting go of Noor. It was about understanding himself, accepting his mistakes, and choosing to grow. Layla had given him a lifeline, and now it was up to him to decide if he was ready to reach for it. "I'm sorry, Layla," Amir said quietly, his voice filled with regret. "I didn't realize how much I was holding on to. I didn't realize how much it was affecting us." Layla smiled softly, her hand still resting gently on his. "It's okay, Amir. I just want you to be happy, and I want us to be happy. But you have to choose to move forward." For the first time in a long time, Amir felt like he could breathe. The weight of the past was still there, lingering in the corners of his mind, but now there was hope. Hope that he could heal. Hope that he could build something new. It wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of doubt, moments of struggle. But Amir knew that for the first time in a long time, he had a chance at happiness. As he turned his gaze back to Layla, his heart felt lighter. The journey ahead would be difficult, but with her by his side, he believed he could face it. He didn't have all the answers, but he was finally ready to find them. And with that, Amir made his choice. The past would remain in the past, and the future, with all its possibilities, awaited him. The tension that had weighed down Amir's chest for what felt like an eternity finally began to lift. As he sat across from Layla, the future that had once seemed uncertain now held a glimmer of hope. But the journey to this moment hadn't been easy. He had wrestled with his past, with the haunting image of Noor, pregnant and happy with someone else, looming over him like a storm cloud. The emotional tug-of-war between what he once had and what he had now was a battle he hadn't known how to fight until now. Layla's quiet support had been the anchor that kept him from drifting too far into the past. And now, it felt like he was standing on the precipice of something new. The question was he ready to jump? Amir took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before him. To move forward, to leave behind the familiar ache of what was lost, meant more than just emotional release. It meant confronting the pieces of his life that he had refused to look at for so long. He had built walls to keep himself safe, but now those walls felt more like prisons. Layla's voice broke through his thoughts, soft but firm. Amir, I can see how much this is weighing on you, but you can't keep carrying all of this alone. Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that he didn't have to navigate this difficult terrain by himself. She was offering him a way forward, a chance to heal, and most importantly, a chance to choose something different. It wasn't about erasing his past. It was about making peace with it and deciding that the present, what they had, was worth fighting for. But the road to healing was never straightforward. As Amir looked at Layla, he knew that it wasn't just about saying the right words. It wasn't even about finding the perfect moment to let go of the past. It was about actively choosing to face the future, no matter how uncertain it seemed. Amir's eyes met Layla's, and for the first time in a long while, he saw something in her eyes that mirrored what he was feeling. Hope, yes, but also a quiet fear. She wanted him to make the choice, to take the leap, but she also knew that the past had a way of staying in the corners of a person's heart, even when they were ready to move forward. He exhaled slowly, gathering his thoughts. His chest still ached with the remnants of old wounds, but they weren't as sharp anymore. The pain had dulled, replaced by a sense of acceptance. He was starting to realize that while he couldn't change what had happened, he could still change what came next. And what came next, he knew, had to be his decision, no one else's. I have spent so much time trying to fix what's already broken, Layla. Amir began, his voice quieter now, as though he were speaking to himself as much as to her. I've been holding on to the past like it's a part of me, like I'm somehow tied to it. But I can't keep doing that. Not if I want to move forward. Not if I want us to have something real. Layla's eyes softened, and she nodded, her hand gently reaching for his. You don't have to forget the past, Amir. It's a part of who you are. But you do have to decide if you're ready to stop living in it. And if you want to build something with me, then I need to know you're ready to fully be here. With me. In the present. Amir's heart clenched at her words. She was right. He had been living in the shadow of his past for so long, it had become his comfort zone. But now, with Layla, he realized that he had a chance to rebuild, to experience life differently, to experience love in a way he hadn't thought possible. But it would take work, real work, the kind of work that required vulnerability, trust, and, perhaps most importantly, time. Amir knew that even if he chose to move forward, there would be days when the past would resurface, when the memories of Noor, of their failed marriage, would threaten to pull him back into the darkness. But he also knew that moving forward meant embracing the uncertainty of the future. Layla's presence grounded him in a way that nothing else had in years. She didn't demand perfection. She didn't expect him to have all the answers. She simply wanted him to be honest with her, and with himself. I don't have all the answers, Amir admitted, his voice tinged with a sense of vulnerability he hadn't shown in years. I don't even know if I'm ready for everything we could be, but I do know that I don't want to lose what we have. I don't want to let my past rob me of the chance to build something with you." Layla smiled, her fingers brushing against his in a silent promise. "I don't want you to lose it either, Amir. But you have to decide to be here, to be fully present. And if you can do that, if you can choose to let go of the past, then I'll be right here with you." The weight of those words settled on Amir like a warm blanket, comforting but heavy with expectation. He knew that no one could make this decision for him. Not Layla, not Noor, and certainly not the ghosts of his past. This was his choice to make. And as much as he had feared the unknown, he was beginning to see it as an opportunity. An opportunity to reclaim his life, his happiness, and maybe even his sense of self. For the first time in a long time, Amir looked forward to the future. It wasn't going to be easy, he knew that. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when he would question whether he had made the right decision. But as he looked into Layla's eyes, he saw the person who had been there for him through it all. The person who had shown him that moving forward didn't mean forgetting. It just meant choosing to live. "I'm ready," Amir said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'm ready to let go of what's been holding me back. I'm ready to be here with you, to build something with you." Layla's smile widened, and for a moment, the weight of everything they had been through seemed to lift. There would still be work ahead, but they would face it together. The future no longer seemed so daunting. It was full of possibilities. Possibilities that had been waiting for Amir to choose them all along. Amir took Layla's hand, feeling the warmth of her touch seep into his soul. This was it. The moment of truth. And for the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace. He had made his choice, and while the past would always be a part of him, it no longer had the power to define him. Together, Amir and Layla would step into the future, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came their way. The past was behind him, and the future, his future, was theirs to create. And in that moment, Amir knew he had made the right choice. As Amir and Layla sat in the quiet after their conversation, the weight of the decision they had both come to started to sink in. The air around them felt lighter, and yet it was filled with the quiet hum of unspoken emotions. Amir, who had spent so many years lost in his regrets, now found himself in the unfamiliar territory of acceptance. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was being pulled in two different directions. He felt grounded, present, and more certain about the future than he had in years. Layla's presence was a constant reminder of the love they had been building, slowly but surely, despite the shadows of the past that still lingered. They both knew that healing wasn't immediate. It wasn't something that could be achieved in a single conversation, a single moment. It was something that would take time, trust, and most importantly, patience. But now they were both willing to give that time to each other. Amir's mind drifted back to Noor, the life they had once shared, the hopes and dreams that had seemed so real at the time. He remembered their laughter, the quiet evenings, the moments when it felt like the world was theirs to conquer. But he also remembered the cracks in their relationship, the miscommunications, the distance that had crept in slowly over time until it was too wide to bridge. In hindsight, he realized that he had been too proud to confront their problems, too afraid to admit that things weren't working. It had taken the end of their marriage to make him realize how much he had failed to fight for them, for their future together. But even now, as the memories surfaced, Amir didn't feel the crushing weight of regret that he once had. Instead, there was a sense of finality. He had let go of what could never be. He had acknowledged his mistakes, learned from them, and now he was ready to build something new. The past wasn't a place he could return to. no matter how much he had once wished he could fix it. It was a part of his history, but not his future. Layla, sensing the shift in Amir, gently squeezed his hand, bringing him back to the present. She had been there through his silent struggles, through the moments when he seemed lost, but she had never pushed him. She understood, perhaps more than anyone, that the heart doesn't heal in a straight line. It takes time, and more than that, it takes understanding. "I know this isn't easy for you," Layla said, her voice soft yet unwavering. "But I need you to understand something, Amir. The past may shape us, but it doesn't define us. We decide what comes next, and we have the power to create the life we want together." Her words echoed in Amir's mind, stirring something deep within him. She was right. They were the authors of their own story now. It wasn't about erasing the past, but rather about choosing how they would move forward. And with Layla by his side, he felt ready to take that step. "I never realized how much I was holding on to," Amir admitted, his voice tinged with a mixture of guilt and relief. "It was like I couldn't let go of Noor, of what we had, even though I knew it was over. But you've helped me see that it's okay to let go, and it's okay to move on." Layla's smile was small but meaningful. "You don't have to do it all at once. Healing takes time. But what matters is that you're ready now, and I'm ready to walk that path with you." Amir nodded, his heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and love. He didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had a partner who was as invested in that future as he was. Together, they would face whatever challenges came their way. Together, they would build something stronger than the brokenness that had defined Amir's past. As they sat there in the quiet of the restaurant, Amir's mind began to settle, the noise of his past fading into the background. He thought about Noor one last time, about what they had shared, and about how, despite their differences, they had once made each other happy. But now, that happiness felt distant. It belonged to another time, another chapter. He looked at Layla, the woman who had patiently waited for him to face the truth and who had shown him what it meant to move forward. She wasn't perfect, and neither was he, but they were perfect for each other. They complemented one another in ways he had never imagined possible. "I'm ready, Layla," Amir said, his voice steady and full of resolve. "I'm ready to let go of the past, to let go of Noor, and I'm ready to focus on what we have, what we can have." Layla's eyes glistened with unshed tears, a smile spreading across her face as she leaned in to kiss him on the cheek. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was enough. They didn't need anything more than this. This moment, this decision, this understanding. The weight in Amir's chest had lifted entirely now. He felt lighter, as though the years of uncertainty, of pain, and of confusion had been released. And while the future remained uncertain, he no longer feared it. He no longer feared facing the unknown, because with Layla, he knew he could handle whatever came their way. As they left the restaurant together, hand in hand, the world outside seemed to fade away. The noise, the chaos, the confusion, it all blurred into the background. What mattered now was the present, and what they would create together. The past was no longer his anchor, but a lesson learned. And the future, uncertain as it might be, was something to look forward to. Amir knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of doubt, moments when he would be tempted to look back. But the difference now was that he had made a choice to move forward, to grow, and to build something real with the woman who had patiently stood by his side. As they walked into the night, side by side, Amir realized that this was only the beginning. The journey was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, he was excited to see where it would take him. Together with Layla, He knew they could create something beautiful, something built on trust, understanding, and the willingness to let go of the past in order to embrace the future. And as they stepped forward into that future, Amir was finally free. Free to love again, free to live again, and free to build the life he had always dreamed of, with Layla by his side.